So yesterday we talked about fundamental duties. So just a quick recap of 2 to 3 minutes, then we will move on to the President of India. So fundamental duties are actually the basic obligations which are provided to whom? To the citizens of our country. By whom? By the Constitution. So that means, are these duties originally there in the Constitution? They are not there in the original Constitution. So because the assumption at that time of the constitutional makers is that there is no need to explicitly mention fundamental duties, because we are giving the rights to the citizens, so they themselves will understand and aware that these are their duties and they will follow, obviously. But by the year 1976, so during the Indira Gandhi government, what has happened? So that a need was felt to constitute that fundamental duties need to be explicitly mentioned. Accordingly, it has constituted a committee. What was the name of that committee? Swaran Singh committee has been constituted. And the Swaran Singh committee, what it has recommended? It has recommended to incorporate the fundamental duties explicitly. Okay. Accordingly, all these recommendations of the Swaran Singh committee were accepted by the government, and then what it has done? It has done a constitutional amendment. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 was brought up, and with that fundamental duties were incorporated into the Constitution of India. Fundamental duties are mentioned in which part of the Constitution? Part 4A of the Constitution. And then which article of the Constitution? Article 51A of the Constitution. Okay. Next, first important thing, are these fundamental duties only to the citizens or to the foreigners as well? Only for the citizens. Because on the other hand, fundamental rights are applicable both to citizens and foreigners. Okay, but however there are some exceptions, and but on the other hand, fundamental duties are exclusively for citizens only. They don't have, foreigners don't have any such duties. Okay, and then are fundamental duties justiciable in nature? Non-justiciable. That means they are not enforceable by a court of law. On the other hand, like fundamental rights. Okay, how many fundamental duties are there originally? 10 fundamental duties are there originally, and the 11th duty was added through 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. What was that duty? The duty is basically to provide the opportunity of education to its children or what in the age group of 6 to 14 years of age. Okay. That is what is the 11th duty which was added. So, and so do all the Swaran Singh committee's recommendations were accepted by the government? All the Swaran Singh committee's recommendations were accepted by government? No. There are 3 such important recommendations which were not accepted. What is the point number 1? Parliament may, by law, can provide for the punishment for the non-compliance of fundamental duties. Okay, this recommendation was not accepted. Number 2, whatever the law that was enacted by the parliament, even though if it violates the fundamental rights or the constitution per se, then it should not be struck off by judicial review. This was also not accepted. And finally, the number 3, duty to pay the taxes. So it has recommended that we have to add a duty to the fundamental duties, saying that it is basically the duty of the citizens of our country to pay the taxes. Even this was also not accepted. So there might be a chance which of the following recommendations of Swaran Singh committee were not accepted by government. Done. That's all finished. So before understanding the president, yesterday we talked about organs of the government. Let me add few more important points to that particular thing. Organs of the government. Organs of the government. So, how many organs are there?
3 organs.
3 organs are there. The first one is legislature, executive, and then judiciary. Okay, fine. What was the role of legislature?
To make a law.
To enact the laws. You have to say that. So it is basically the duty of the legislature to enact the laws. What are the role of the executive? To implement the laws. Whatever the laws that are made by the legislature, implement those laws. What is the role of the judiciary? Adjudicate the laws. That means whenever it has to see whether they are in conformity with the constitution or not, whether are they discriminatory or not. So, okay, if it was found discriminatory, it is a Supreme Court which will take off that particular law. Then we have the central and then we have the state level. At central level, what is the legislature called? Parliament. Okay, nobody will tell these basic things, and it is must and should that you should know about. So the legislature at the central level is called as parliament, and as well as what is executive called? Executive is basically president plus council of ministers. This council of ministers also includes the prime minister. President plus council of ministers comes under the executive. Legislature, parliament comes under the legislature. So in the judiciary we have the Supreme Court. Okay. Then legislator at the state level. Legislative assembly plus legislative council. Legislative assembly plus legislative council. And as well as at the state level, governor plus council of ministers. This council of ministers also includes chief minister. Council of ministers, governor plus council of ministers. This council of ministers also includes chief minister. And then here high courts. Okay, high courts. Central legislature is referred as parliament. State legislature is basically legislative assembly plus legislative council. At the central executive is president plus council of ministers. So state level executive is governor plus council of ministers. You should not say central judiciary and state judiciary. This collectively we call it as integrated judiciary. Integrated judiciary we call it as. Okay. Up till here we have discussed yesterday, correct, right? Let us continue from here. Now the powers are distributed between executive, legislature and as well as judiciary. That means everybody have their own powers. That we call it as separation of powers. Whenever the powers are distributed and they are separated between the executive, legislature and judiciary, that is called as separation of powers. The powers are distributed between executive, legislature and as well as judiciary. Similarly, this is central government and these are the state governments. The powers are also distributed between these two things, and that is regarded as division of powers. Division of powers. That means whenever I am talking about separation of powers, I am saying that the powers between executive, legislature and judiciary. Whenever I am talking about division of powers, I am talking about central and state governments. The powers are distributed between central and state governments. Example for this division of powers is 3 lists of schedule number 7. 3 lists is one such example for the distribution of powers between central and state governments. Those 3 lists are mentioned in the schedule number 7 of our constitution. What are those 3 lists? Those 3 lists are union list, state list, correct, concurrent list. What is meant by state list? What is meant by union list? What is union list? What is meant by union list? Any idea? No idea? No problem. Union list basically contains list of subjects on which only parliament can enact the law. Only parliament can enact the law. Whatever all the subjects which are mentioned in the union list, on that particular list only parliament has exclusive privilege. Because law making is concerned with the legislature, right? When I am talking about the list of 6 on subjects on which only union can make, is like parliament only alone can make the laws on which. Now can you extrapolate and say me what is state list? What might be state list? Again, this also contains the list of subjects. But however, who can make the law? State legislative assembly or legislature council can make the laws. Okay, that means whenever a subject on union list comes into picture, only parliament can make the law. That is basically union list. And as well as the state list means whenever a particular subject comes under state list, it basically been done by legislative assembly plus legislative council. Okay, clear. So now can you understand here how the powers are demarcated clearly, divided between, see, these are your subjects, these are your subjects. Now can you tell me what is concurrent list? some are parliament, some are legislature. Rather than saying that, so say it in this way, both, it basically contains the list of subjects in which both parliament plus state legislature can enact the laws on it. Both the parliament and as well as the state legislature can enact the laws on the list of subjects which are mentioned in the concurrent list. Clear? Now, one more important point about concurrent list. Let us assume that, let us take a subject of concurrent list. That means on this particular thing, both parliament can make a law, state legislative assembly can make a law. For example, assume that they both have enacted the laws. Assume that parliament has also enacted a law, legislative assembly has also enacted a law, because they both are competent enough to do that. In that context, whose law will be the upper hand? Whose law will be the upper hand? That means in the case of conflict between the parliament law and the state law on the concurrent list, whose law will prevail? Can you identify whose law will prevail? Which law is higher? Whose law will prevail? Parliament or state legislative assembly? Whose law? Whose law will prevail? Be it parliament or state legislature? Correct. Whenever on a particular subject, both the parliament and legislative assembly enacted a law, in that cases parliament's law will prevail. But however, legislative assembly, if it went to president and requested the president by saying that in my state, this particular my state law only should prevail. If the president gives the permission, then in that state, that legislative assembly's law will prevail, and at the all over the country, parliament's law will prevail. Clear? Yes. So now the question can be, union list, state list, concurrent list, they are all mentioned in which schedule of the constitution? Seventh schedule of the constitution. Seventh schedule deals with which of the following? It deals with the distribution of powers between central and as well as state governments in the form of 3 lists. Those 3 lists are union list, state list and concurrent list. Apart from these things, we have one more thing called as residuary powers. Residuary powers. Apart from the state list, concurrent list, union list, we have the residuary powers. Okay, what are residuary? Residuary means remaining, left out. For example, in future, if any subject comes into picture which is not part of union list, not part of state list, not part of concurrent list, then that is basically the residuary power. Who of the following authorities, which of the following authorities do have the residuary powers? This will be the question. You should understand that these residuary powers are basically on, again conferred to parliament only. Parliament only. Now with this, can you understand that the subjects mentioned in union list enacted by whom? Parliament. Subjects enacted in the concurrent list, whose law will only prevail? Parliament's law only prevail. Subjects which are mentioned in residuary powers, again parliament only. So that means state legislature has only very limited role, and that limited role is only state list. Okay. Again, there was still more exception in that there are certain circumstances, even though the subjects in the state list can also be enacted by the parliament. That we will discuss in the next higher levels. Up till now, this you should have the clarity. This is a separation of powers, this is a division of powers. So the powers is schedule number 7 and then the 3 lists. Now you should understand one more thing. For example, in executive, legislature and judiciary, the general tendency is that one of the organs always try to dominate the other 2 organs. Legislature sometimes try to dominate executive and judiciary. Judiciary tries to control executive and legislature. Similarly, the vice versa with executive. Executive also tries to control legislature and judiciary. That should happen. That should not happen. In order to not to happen, we have something called as checks and balances. That means whenever legislature is trying to dominate executive and as well as judiciary, then the other 2 organs will bring that legislature down, so that all the 3 organs will be on same line. Okay, by using something called as checks and balances. Check it and balance it again. So that all the three organs will continue, they will continue to work in harmony with each other, is something that you have to understand. Okay, so this particular diagram only we will be studying, and like first we will start with President of India, then executive is done, we will go to legislature, parliament, then Supreme Court, then governor, then legislative assembly plus council, and then high courts. And on the other way we have something called as, after studying all these things, we will union territories. We will study about the union territories as well. So since this was the very basic platform, whatever the basic topics only we will discuss in this particular thing. Mains flow, where when you talk about mains flow, this is how we will be studying in a structured way on each and everything. Yes. Now, let's talk about the President of India. So can you tell me some important points about President of India? What are the points that you know? Okay. He is the first citizen of India. Okay. Yes. The President of India, if you talk about, so the President of India is part of executive, legislature or judiciary? Executive. He is not only the part of executive, but he is also part of legislature as well. Why? Because at the central level, when you talk about parliament, what is parliament? Is basically a combination of Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha. Does it mean by only parliament? Plus president. That means president is not only the part of the executive, he is also the part of the legislature. He is the integral part of the parliament. Parliament constitutes Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha plus President of India. Okay, the first important point is that the president is basically the head of our nation, or basically he is the head of the state. Head of our nation, or basically the head of the state. When we are talking about something called as a republic, in preamble we talk about this president. Why? Because what is republic? When can you say that a particular country is republic? No idea? Okay. So there is one measurement with respect to republic. So what you have to understand is that whenever if you talk about a country, so you should ask two questions. Question number 1, who is your head of the nation, or who is basically the ultimate head, is the first question you should ask. Second question is that particular head is elected, or that particular position is hereditary? Second question you should ask is that particular head is elected directly, be it direct or indirect, by the people, or is he the hereditary position? Now let us ask the same two questions to our country. Okay, first of all, who is the head of your country, India? Who is the head? President of India is the head. Second question, is he elected, or is it a hereditary position? So he is actually elected. That means it has satisfied both the conditions, and therefore we can term the India as the republic. So that means when somebody asks you what is republic, whenever a country's highest authority is elected, that is called republic. Let us take another example, Bhutan. The first question, who is the head of your country? King is the head of our country. Okay. Second question, is he elected or hereditary position? They'll answer it's a hereditary position. So that means Bhutan is not a republic, and it was a monarchy. It was a constitutional monarchy. You should understand. Consider the following statements about India and as well as the Bhutan. So both the heads of the nations are elected. The first statement will be. So second statement will be, or both the heads of the nations are hereditary position. The second statement will be. So both the heads of the nations. So basically India's Our country's head is the President of India and he is elected, and on the other hand Bhutan's country's head is king and he is not elected, and it is hereditary position, therefore it is a constitutional monarchy. Understand? Whenever, so preamble, so that means whenever we talked about republic, we should also talk about president only. Since in our country the president is the head of our country and he is elected, we are even calling this as the republic, and he is the head of our nation and he is the first citizen of our country. Who of the following will be the first citizen of our country? It is the president. They will tweak and ask here that Prime Minister is the first citizen of our country. No, it is the President who is the first head of the citizen of our country. And the next important thing you should understand that he is also the symbol of the solidarity, unity and as well as integrity. Solidarity means the feeling of unity, again that is also. So the president at the head will act as a symbol of unity of our country, integrity of our country and the solidarity. Solidarity means it is also the feeling of the unity. Okay, one and the same. And then next important point you should understand is, we have already discussed, he is the part of the Union Executive along with Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, Attorney General of India, all these things. So that means it is mentioned in which part of the Constitution? Part 5 of the Constitution. Because up till part 4 we discussed, up till part 4 is associated with directive principles of state policy. Part 5 is union government. That means specifically Union Executive contains the President as the head, followed by Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, Attorney General are all part of Union Executive. Okay. Then still more there is a division like real head and nominal head and all those things. We will discuss them in our next future classes. Let's go to the next important point. So then the next important is that it is the president who is considered as the supreme commander of the armed forces. We have Indian Army, Navy and Air Force, right? It is the President of India which is considered as the supreme commander. Here there can be a potential question, like they will ask point number 1. Prime Minister is the supreme commander of the armed forces. Number 2, Union Defense Minister is the supreme commander of the armed forces, because defense forces means Union Defense Minister only, right? Logically. So we can also, next third one, National Security Advisor, NSA is basically the head of the armed forces of our country. So all these statements are wrong. And who is the supreme commander? It is the president who is considered as the supreme commander of our armed forces, and he is the commander in chief of the armed forces of our country. Who is the patron in chief of the NALSA? Who is the patron in chief of NALSA? National Legal Services Authority. To the National Legal Services Authority, NALSA, who is the patron in chief? Who is the patron in chief? Who is the head? Head evarandi? Who is the head of the National Legal Services Authority? No idea? We have already discussed it, right? Chief Justice of India is basically the patron in chief of NALSA. Executive Chairman is the senior most judge of the Supreme Court. Similarly, at State Legal Services Authority, who is the head? Chief Justice of the concerned High Court. And as well as the Executive Chairman is the senior most judge of the High Court. That concerned High Court will act as the patron in chief of NALSA. Okay, then next important point you should understand that the executive power is actually vested with the President of India, and he will exercise him either directly or by through the officers subordinated to him in accordance with the Constitution. That means whenever Government of India issues any order, that will be issued in the name of the President of India. Okay, so he is basically the head of the Union Executive. These are the important points you should understand. So the President is part of the Union Executive. So the President is the supreme commander of the armed forces of our country. He is the commander in chief of the defense forces in our country. And then the next important point is he is basically the head of the Union Executive, and all the actions will be directly taken done by him or on behalf of him by the officers subordinate to him in accordance with our Constitution of India. Clear, right, up till these points? So these are basic facts that you should know. Next important is qualifications. So for example, when somebody want to become a president, if tomorrow you want to become president, so you should meet some qualifications, right? So what are those qualifications to become a president of India, to be the first citizen? First important qualification is that he should have at least minimum 35 years of age. Second important is that he should be a citizen of India. So that means no alien or foreigner cannot contest even the elections. He is not even qualified to become the president of India. So the first important is minimum he should have at least 35 years of age. Second one, he should be a citizen of India. And third important is he should satisfy all the conditions to become a member of the Lok Sabha. Whatever the conditions which are all there for the member of the Lok Sabha, he has to satisfy all those conditions. And what conditions required for Lok Sabha? When we are discussing the member of parliament, Lok Sabha, we will discuss then. And the fourth important is that he should not hold any office of profit. He should not hold any office of profit, either under the central government or under the state government or any authority for that matter, any government authority. Okay. The Constitution of India has prescribed only these four. Constitution of India prescribed only these four qualifications. Number one, he has to be minimum 35 years of age. Number two, he should be a citizen of India. Number three, he should satisfy all the conditions which are required to become a member of Lok Sabha. And finally, he should not hold any office of profit. Okay, any other office of profit. Some important understanding you should make here is that there can be a potential question. This office of profit is nowhere defined. What is office of profit? It was nowhere defined. It was not defined in the Constitution of India. There can be a potential question where they will ask you that the office of profit is well defined in the Constitution of India. Then they will make a clear statement. Okay. So, but you should understand that office of profit is nowhere defined in the Constitution, and therefore that statement is a wrong one. UPSC is just giving a trap. Okay. And next important thing is that extreme statements. Whenever any extreme statements were made by UPSC, they were all false. 90% of the cases. Okay. No precedent up till now, never ever happened, historically happened for the very first time. So these are all very extreme statements. Okay. We need to be little cautious. Here as well, the statement said that the office of profit is clearly defined in the Constitution of India. But is it true? No, office of profit is not at all defined. What is office of profit? Okay. That you have to understand. So now let's say the qualifications. The same thing. A candidate has to meet some qualifications to be elected as the president, and those are, he should be an Indian citizen at all. First of all, compulsorily he has to be an Indian citizen. Foreigners, even though we are giving them fundamental rights, but we are not giving them this opportunity. So okay, they are not eligible to contest in our as a president's election. Second one, at least minimum of 35 years of age he should qualify all the conditions to be elected as a member of Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha, what is the other name of Lok Sabha? What is the other name of Lok Sabha? House of People. And what is the other name of Rajya Sabha? Council of States. So these words generally they will ask. They will not say Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. They will say House of People and Council of States. Those statements you need to be very thorough. And finally, he should not hold any office of profit under central government, state government or any public authority. So what are those four qualifications prescribed by Constitution? Should be a citizen of India. Number two, minimum of 35 years of age. Number three, he should satisfy all the conditions which are required to be elected as a Lok Sabha or House of People for that matter. And finally, he should not hold any office of profit under central government or state government or any authority. Clear, right? And these four qualifications were prescribed directly by the Constitution itself. They will ask you, consider the following statements about qualifications of president. And the first question says that, first option says that the Constitution of India did not prescribe any qualification for the President. They will ask like that. You should understand that Constitution of India have prescribed, and these are the 4 qualifications which are required to become the contest as a President of India. Then Electoral College. Electoral College. What is the meaning of Electoral College? Okay, so first one. First of all, tell me, even Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Okay. So when you talk about the President of India, is he elected or hereditary position? Elected. Now can you tell me, is he elected directly by the people or indirect election? President of India's election is an indirect election. That is very, very important, Andy. So the President is not directly elected by the people. It is an indirect election. So that means we are electing the representatives, and those representatives will elect the President in turn. We are electing the representatives, and those representatives will in turn elect the President. Okay. Now, once if you are understanding clear with that particular point, now let me tell you who are all the members of Electoral College. Means who are all the members who are eligible to elect the President. Okay, so that means who are all the people who are eligible to sit in this class, who are all paid the fees and joined the admission, are eligible to these things. So that means you can say this is an Electoral College now. In this Electoral College, now whoever all can elect the President, they are all part of Electoral College. Okay, Electoral College of President, we will say. Now the question is, who are all part of this Electoral College? Very important. Definitely one question we can expect on this particular aspect. Okay, who are all the members of Electoral College? You should understand, write like this: elected members of number 1, Lok Sabha. Whoever all the members who are elected in Lok Sabha, they are all part of Electoral College. And plus the members, elected members of Rajya Sabha, or Rajya Sabha is also known as Council of States. Lok Sabha is also known as House of People. Okay, so whoever all the members elected in Lok Sabha, whoever all the members elected in Rajya Sabha. Here you should understand that Rajya Sabha comprises of 2 people, elected plus nominated. Rajya Sabha has a combination of elected people and as well as nominated people. If you talk about nominated people, 12 members are nominated to Rajya Sabha. So that means, are they part of Electoral College? Are these nominated members part of Electoral College? No. What we have read? That means nominated members of Rajya Sabha has no role in the Electoral College. Very, very important. Only elected members of Lok Sabha plus elected members of Rajya Sabha, plus there is one more, number 2. State legislative assemblies. How many states we have? 28 states we have. How many union territories we have? 8 union territories. So all these 28 states have, each and every state has one legislative assembly. So therefore 28 states will have 28 legislative assemblies. They are all part of Electoral College. And you should understand one more, when we talked about organs of the government, we said that at the state level, legislature assembly plus legislative council. We call it as MLCs, member of legislative councils. MLCs antar kada vinnara, MLCs antar anamata. So that means legislative assembly plus legislative council. And you should understand that the members of legislative councils of all of the states are not part of electoral college. So that means number 1, elected members of, you should use these words, elected members of Lok Sabha plus elected members of Rajya Sabha plus elected members of the state legislative assemblies of all the states, plus we were left with UTs as well, right? So UTs should also be part of the electoral college, right? There also you can write down legislative assemblies of Delhi and Puducherry. Legislative assemblies of Delhi and as well as Puducherry. You can ask a question. There are 8 states, but we talked about only two union territories. There are 8 union territories, but we talked about only 2 union territories, Delhi and Puducherry. Why not other union territories? Understood the question? Why not other union territories? Why only Delhi and Puducherry? Why? Because only these 2 union territories have legislative assemblies. Only these 2 union territories. There is also one more. It is Jammu and Kashmir. Is also one more union territory, but however still the previous election of the president, it was not yet participated, because after these things, so it has not participated. In the later on in the next election of the president, maybe the Jammu and Kashmir may also be part of the legislative assembly. Okay, the other union territories, like for example Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, and then what are the other things? Chandigarh, and then Dadra and Nagar Haveli and as well as Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and as well as Daman and Diu, and then Ladakh. All these union territories, they don't have the legislative assembly. Therefore, no elected members will be there, only directly administered by the central government. So therefore, but only Delhi, Puducherry, Jammu and Kashmir are the only union territories which have the legislative assemblies. So finally, what is electoral? That's it. Only these 3 things, Andy. So when somebody asks you, can you tell me, can you explain me the electoral college of the president? Then you should begin from elected members of Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha. Here you should understand that nominated members are not the part of the electoral college. Number 2, state legislative assemblies. All the state legislative assemblies, elected members. Wherever here as well, we will have nominated members. In each legislative assembly also, we have the nominated members, 1 or the 2 nominated members, and those members are also not part of the electoral college. And finally, legislative assemblies of Delhi and as well as Puducherry. That's it. This is comprises the electoral college of the president. Understand? The same thing we have written here. There is no direct election for the Indian president. An electoral college elects him. The electoral college responsible for the president's election comprises of elected members of Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha. Here we have elected members, nominated members. Please exclude nominated members and only take elected members. Legislative assemblies of all the states. Here legislative councils have no role. They are not part of electoral college. And then legislative assemblies of union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. That's it. This is basically the electoral college of the president. Just have a look for 30 seconds, then we will move to the next slide. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, Nandi? Done? Yes. The note point, very important point, and these points are actually very important. The nominated members of both the houses of the parliament nominated members of the state legislative assemblies and the nominated members of legislative assemblies of Delhi and Puducherry, they do not participate in the election of the president. Okay, Nandi, they will not participate and only the elected members only will participate. Legislative council has also no role. Wherever the union territories, where there is no legislative assembly, they will not participate. Okay, next important after electoral college is oath. Who will administer the oath? Okay, first of all, what oath that the President of India takes? Before entering the office, the President has to make and subscribe to an oath which says these three things. He has to faithfully execute the office of President. He has to preserve, protect and defend the Constitution of India and the law, and devote oneself to the services and the well-being of the people of India. By saying these three things, the President of India before entering into the office will subscribe to the oath. Okay, what is important from this perspective? They will ask, who will administer the oath to the President of India? Who will give the oath? President of India ki avaru oath istaru? Supreme Court, senior judge? Okay, you can say that it is actually Chief Justice of India. Chief Justice of India, so will administer, you have to use the word called administer the oath to the President of India. In case Chief Justice of India is not present, then in case Chief Justice of India is not available, he is not present, now the oath of the President will stop. Somebody should be accommodated, right? Then who will be accommodated? Senior most judge of Supreme Court, correct. Senior most judge of Supreme Court will administer the oath to the President of India. Here they will trick the question in such a way, instead of Chief Justice of India, they will ask Vice President. And they will say that, statement number 1, the Vice President of India will administer the oath to the President of India. Okay, is it true or false? False. Why? Because Chief Justice of India will administer. Or second possible question they will ask is, in the absence of Chief Justice of India, Vice President will administer the oath to the President of India. Is it true? False. Again false. Why? Because Senior most judge of Supreme Court will administer the oath to the President of India. That you have to understand. Okay, this point you have to grasp from here. The same thing. The oath of office to the President of India is administered by Chief Justice of India, and in his absence the senior most judge of the Supreme Court who is available. For example, if a president died suddenly and acting president came, he is just the acting president. That means till a new president is elected and he is an acting president. What happens with respect to acting president? Again he has to subscribe to oath. He has to subscribe to the oath. And to the acting president, who will administer the oath? Now the Vice President? Again Chief Justice of India. Be it the acting president or the real normal president, it is a Chief Justice of India only who will administer the oath. The same thing we have written here. Any other person who is acting of president or discharging the functions of the president also will undertake the similar oath. That is important point. Here you can see the President Draupadi Murmu, okay, and the oath, this is basically a oath swearing ceremony, and who is he? N.V. Ramana, who is the Chief Justice of India, and you can see that it is the Chief Justice of India who is administering the oath to the President of India. This point you have to understand. Then, what about the term? How long can a president continue? Do the constitution has prescribed it, or did the constitution has left the matter to the parliament itself? కొత్త కన్ఫ్యూజన్స్ తీసుకురావటమే యూపీఎస్సీ పని అండి, ఓకేనా? అండ్ మన బేసిక్ ఫ్యాక్ట్స్ మనకు చాలా క్లియర్గా ఉండాలన్నమాట. సింప్లీ దే అడుగుతారు, ద టర్మ్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్రెసిడెంట్స్ ఆఫీస్ was determined by the parliament by law and the constitution of India did not have any say on this. This they will make the statement, but however no. So the constitution of India has prescribed that the president of India The term is 5 years. And however, even if he want to resign before 5 years itself, he can resign, and he has to submit his resignation to whom? Vice President or Chief Justice, because oath was administered by Chief Justice only, right? So now he will submit his resignation to whom?
Vice President.
Correct. Correct. It was Vice President of India, he has to submit his resignation. So oath will be administered by Chief Justice of India to the President, and as well as the resignation, when it want to submit, it will be submitted to the Vice President of India. Correct. You can write down. The President shall hold the office for a period of the 5 years from the date on which he enters upon the office. However, if the President decides to resign from his post before the end of his tenure, then he has to address his resignation letter to the Vice President of India. That is very, very important. Then, vacancy in the President's office. Vacancy in the President's office. How come a new vacancy will be created in the President's office? Number one, for example, a President was indirectly elected by the Electoral College, and what was the term? 5 years. 5 years got expired, completed, so therefore a vacancy will be created. That means when the term of 5 years is completed, upon the expiry of the 5 years, the President's post will be vacant. A vacancy will be created. Now, second one, 5 years is not completed, but after 2 years, the President thought to resign himself, okay, by submitting his resignation to Vice President. So that means upon resignation, vacancy will be created. He will submit it to Vice President. And number 3, when the President of India died while he was in the office, then also a vacancy will be created. Then, when the Parliament removes the President of India by impeachment, then also vacancy will be created. And finally, the 5th one is any other reason. That other reason can be, for example, if the election of the President is declared invalid by the Supreme Court. If the election of the President is declared invalid, null and void by the Supreme Court, a fraud has happened in the election while electing this particular President, then his election will be declared null and void. Then in that case also, the post will be vacant. So that means 5 important grounds. When the term of 5 years is completed, it's a happy path. In between, when the resignation happened in the middle itself, so the death has happened, he is removed by the Parliament by impeachment or otherwise. That means example is when the election of the President is declared null and void by the Supreme Court. With respect to death, do any President died while he was in office? How many Presidents have died while they were in office? 1? Okay, indeed. 2 Presidents have died while they were in office. First one is Zakir Hussain. He was the first Muslim President of our country, and he was the first President to die in office. Second one is Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad. 2 important Presidents have died while they were in office. That you have to understand. Okay, fine. The same way we have written. A vacancy in the President's office can occur in any of the following ways: on the expiry of the tenure of 5 years, by way of resignation, submitting to Vice President, on the removal of the process by impeachment. Who will do this impeachment? Parliament will do this impeachment. And by way of his death, for example, two people have died. One is Zakir Hussain and second one is Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad. And otherwise means whenever the election of the President is declared null and void by the court, in that context also a vacancy of the President will be created. Up till now we are clear? The same we have written. Zakir Hussain was the first Muslim President of India and the first Indian President to die in office. He served as the 3rd President of India from 1967 to 69, and the second one is Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad was the 2nd President of India who died in the office. Removal of the President. there is a detailed procedure to remove the president and so that we will discuss in the foundation classes. As of now, we are confining ourselves to saying that article number 61 of the constitution has provided the how to remove the president. Removing of the president is regarded as something called as impeachment. And who has the role in the impeachment? It is basically the parliament has the power to remove the president. You should understand here that state legislative assemblies of the union territories, they all don't have any role. They are not involved. They were only involved in the election but not the removal. It is only in the parliament alone has the power to remove the president. And in the parliament also, not only elected members, now nominated members will also participate in the removal. While election they will not participate, while removal they will participate. Okay, that is basically removal of the president. So by impeachment under article number 61 of the constitution, and there is a detailed procedure is there, like how to remove the president, what majority is required, and all those provisions that we will discuss later on. Now, these are, I'll tell you 4 other important points which are must and should that you should know. For example, a president was elected and he started functioning, he started issuing the orders. 2 years passed by, and after 2 years, Supreme Court of India has declared this particular president's election as null and void, invalid. So that means he came to the office by fraud. Okay. Now 2 years have passed, and he might have issued some orders. He might have taken some decisions. What is the status of those decisions? Will that decisions be also be declared as invalid because the president itself came to the office by fraud? What was the way? What about the actions and what about the decisions taken by the president whose election was declared null and void by the Supreme Court later? Any opinion? Understood the question, right? Yes. Mistakes, decisions, decisions when the president itself, okay, you are explaining it. Okay, when the decisions of the president are basically valid, you mean correct, you mean to say that parliament will approve them, and when they are any false, you mean to say that parliament will take away them. Okay, Constitution of India has said that whatever the decisions which are taken by the president of India, even though his election is declared invalid later, his actions will continue to be valid. Okay, be it positive or negative. Because President of India will not do per se, right? He will be assisted by Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. So therefore, whatever the actions which are done by President of India while he was in the office, before declaring his elections as invalid, all those actions are valid. That is the first provision. If the second provision, if the election of a person as president or vice president is declared void by Supreme Court, whatever the acts done by him in the exercise and performance of the powers and duties of the office of president or vice president, as the case may be, before the date of such a decision of Supreme Court, shall not be invalidated by reason of that declaration. That means they remain valid. They continue to be the orders issued by president only, even though that president came through fraud. Understand? Next. For example, whenever a person's election is disputed, so like who will settle those particular disputes? It will be settled by Supreme Court of India. And whatever the decision that is said by Supreme Court of India, that is final. If Supreme Court says that so particular person is declared, election is declared as null and void, then that will be final and there is no more appeal, because that was the highest court in our country, right? So first point is, whenever the actions which have been done by the President of India, they will not be invalidated just on the mere ground that the President's election is fraud. And then second point is, all the doubts and the disputes associated with the President or Vice President's election, they will all be taken by the Supreme Court of India and its decisions will be final. Okay. Third point. It is the Parliament, whatever the matters related to that of the connected with the election of the President or Vice President, in order to regulate the matters associated with the election of the President and Vice President, then it is the Parliament which will do. Only when there is a dispute, Supreme Court will come into picture. The rest of the all regulating matters will be taken by the Parliament itself, is the third important point. And finally the fourth point. Now, who will elect the president? Is basically electoral college. Electoral college consisting of elected members. For example, assume that in some of the legislative assemblies there are vacancies. There are vacancies. For example, in some of the states, even the legislative assembly is not there because the elections may be in future. In some of the states, a president's rule is there. In that context, since there is vacancy, can the elections of the president be postponed? No or no need? So there is no need. Whoever all the states that are available, whoever all the parliament that is available, so only they will participate and they will continue. They will not wait for the vacancies to be filled. So that means the president's election will not be postponed just on the ground that there is a vacancy in the electoral college. There is a vacancy in the electoral college. That's the point. The election of a person as president or vice president shall not be called in question on the grounds of existence of any vacancy for whatever reason among the members of the electoral college electing him. So that means particular person has been elected as president and you cannot say that this election is not valid because there are total many vacancies are there in the electoral college. So his election should not be considered as genuine or authentic or whatever it may be. That is what is these things. All these statements are directly set by Constitution of India under article number 71 of the Constitution. These 2 points and the previous 2 points. Clear? Yes. Now it's the high time that you should answer the questions. This was the question that was asked in Union Public Service Commission 2023 regarding the President of India. Remove the third statement as of now, since we have not yet done that particular topic. Yeah, very basic question. If the election of the President of India is declared void by Supreme Court of India, okay, so that means a fraud has happened and Supreme Court of India has declared that particular election as void. Then all the acts which are done by him or her in the performance of the duties of his or her office of President before the date of the decisions will become invalid. The statement is saying this. Is this statement true or false?
False.
False. Why? Because all the decisions which are taken by the before coming to the decision is final will become the valid. They will not be invalidated. So statement 1 is wrong. Next, statement 2.
False.
Why false? Because we also discussed that even though there are vacancies, even though some legislative assemblies are dissolved, they are not available, then we cannot postpone the election of the president just by the reason that some of the legislative assemblies are dissolved. So what they are saying, elections for the post can be postponed, they are saying. So this statement is also wrong. Then the third statement, when a bill is presented to President of India, the Constitution prescribed the time limits within which he or she has to declare his or her assent. Okay, this we will discuss later when the time comes when we are discussing Parliament. This is also wrong. Constitution did not prescribe any such time period. And how many pairs are correct therefore? First one is wrong, second one is wrong, third one is wrong. D, none of the above. This is how they will ask the questions. Okay? That is answer is D. We will stop it here for today and we will continue the next questions tomorrow. And then we will move on to the Vice President of India.